The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, where we talk about healing, self-care, love, sex, relationships, and what it takes to be amazing on the daily. Who I am Candace Harper, lovecoach.com, and my purpose with this podcast is to create healthy romantic relationships all around the world, especially now that there is a worldwide health crisis and people are in need of love and connection now more than ever. So those of you who have been tuning in know already that I usually have a co-host. Mrs. Anika Bell from the Celebrities Boutique, and like so many podcasts and shows and content creators, we have shut down our in-person production. So Anika's not going to be on the show for a while. I live in a town where Celebrities Boutique is as well, and there's currently a curfew. And also, we're just choosing to be responsible, do our part, and eliminate non-essential contact. You know, I feel like it's good to, be an example. I don't believe in the panic, but I definitely believe in being responsible and safe, responsible for our communities and responsible for each other. And just, practice as much safety around contagion and all of that stuff as we can. But that's not what you're here for. You're not here to talk about coronavirus rules or to listen about coronavirus rules. I'm actually going to be talking about, I don't want to tell you what I'm talking about yet, should I? All right, I'll tell you. So I'm going to be talking about matchmaking, mating, and dating during a pandemic. And I'm a professional matchmaker. We're going to get into all of that. But before we get to that, because this show is about to make a huge pivot, what with not having Anika for a while and, that I am doing this completely solo in my own self-quarantine. Not because I'm sick, but I'm just trying to keep, safe. Safe for anybody I come in contact with, safe for myself, all that good stuff like the CDC is instructing us to do. So I'm going to be recording just right out of my house, and I'm still working as a matchmaker, and I'm going to talk to you about how I'm doing that in a time when people can't necessarily meet up and date, and it's not so easy and convenient to do that, and it's not so responsible necessarily to do that. But before we get to that, as usual, I just want to shout out Armed Radio and all the peeps who are listening in around the world. As always, it's a pleasure. Also, I don't want you to forget to subscribe to Ask for Candy on Anchor, because I don't know when I'm going to be doing live on social media again. So those of you who listen on Facebook or usually tune in for the conversation, if you're listening now, definitely subscribe on Anchor and you'll still get the show. You'll still get to hear, the things that I'm talking about each week, especially if part of what you're interested in is creating intimacy and connection during this weird, crazy pandemic time of life. Also, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to keep it updated and, keep with the times of it and all that stuff. But, sometimes I get a little bit behind, but it's still a good way to be able to listen to past shows. It's a good way to just, keep up with us. Also, I just realized, too, I probably should just be keeping up with the amount of time that because I'm recording right now, I probably should be keeping up with the time. So let me take a look at that. Okay, so we're doing all right. We're at 4. So, yeah, subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to Anchor. Also, we're on Patreon. So if you want to become a patron of the show, if you become a patron, you get first dibs on any perks or offers, giveaways, my coaching. You guys know that I'm a relationship coach as well. So you get 30% off of private coaching if you become a Patreon. And in this time of need, I think growth and development and learning connection, learning the tools to create healthy relationships is one of the most important things that we can do right now, because our whole world is going to be about community and connection. And I got to tell you, I'm not insensitive to the danger and the sickness and the death and any of that. I'm not insensitive to any of that. But I also believe that even with hardship, there is opportunity. And I think the opportunity in this is that there is a cleaning of the slate when it comes to our human relationships and our human connections that is happening. And I think what's going to become most important right now, because I think we've been prioritizing a lot of things that aren't sustainable, a lot of things that aren't necessarily good for us, a lot of things that don't advance us as human beings. But what's going to become incredibly important is our connections with each other. And, there's a part of me that feels really joyful about that. Even in the midst of the craziness and in the midst of the uncertainty. I've as an entrepreneur, I've been living kind of uncertain for a while. So the uncertainty is not really bothering me all that much. I'm very open to what I cannot control, because I do believe in the universe. I believe in love. I believe in God. And I believe that there is a power beyond me that makes sure that everything works out. So I'm okay with uncertainty. That doesn't bother me at all. And so I'm finding a lot of joy in this possibility for how we as humans are going to be motivated, inspired, and moved to connect with each other, to love on each other, to be there for each other in a way that we haven't been as a community and as a global community in a while. That's not to say that there's not a lot of people out there doing great things and that there's not a lot of people out there making charitable contributions, things like that. But I think the overarching sort of cultural energy is not one of community. It's more about survival. And you can tell that even in how people are reacting to this pandemic, this whole rushing out for toilet paper and, just crowding and, just the survival, going into survival mode, that it's just about me surviving and it's not about the community surviving. So anywhere that's in the space is just indication of the healing and the community that needs to happen. So yeah, I say all of that to say, I'm looking forward to how we are going to be able to show up for each other in all of this. So the last way that you can get in touch with me is to email me at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. And if you have any questions, this is going to be a much more pared down, intimate show than it used to be, at least for a while, at least through the course of this crisis. If you have any questions about dating and love and connecting with all, and I won't say in spite of or despite, because I don't believe in that. I believe that whatever's happening, we need to lean into. So if you have any questions or want to talk about dating, mating, love, and connecting, along with everything that's going on in the world right now, along with what could be considered limitations to that sort of thing, if you want to listen about that, if you want to interact about it, if you want to tell me anything about it, if you want to be a guest on the show remotely, email me, askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. And so now let's get ready to talk about this big pivot, the big pivot of the show. So, all this time I've been talking about love, sex, dating, relationships. And, for a lot of people, when this news of this pandemic started to come around, people in the communities where I work, I'm a professional matchmaker with Talkify. And also, obviously as a coach, as a relationship coach, my communities are coaches and other people who are involved in the growth conversation and other people who want to see people connect. And a lot of people's responses were, what are we going to do now? We can't have gatherings. We can't have events. We can't get together. What's going to happen now? This is terrible. This is going to be bad for business. And, I'll admit, even for myself, my initial reaction, my knee-jerk reaction was, oh, shit. I'm not going to be able to get people together anymore. How am I going to do healing circles, workshops, and things like that? We're not going to be able to gather. I was thinking that's a problem. But you know what? It dawned on me in leaning into it, and I believe in this so wholeheartedly. the importance of leaning in, the importance of acceptance, the importance of unconditional living. This is what unconditional living is. Even when it doesn't look like what we want it to look like, even when it doesn't show up in a way that is what we planned and what we envisioned, there is something to be had there. There is something in the acceptance of it and the leaning into it. There is something in the openness to being flexible around it that makes whatever happens. And I know that sounds drastic because there's been some horrible things in the world throughout history. But the leaning into it is what causes the ability to change it and causes the power to change it if it needs to be changed. The accepting of it, the allowing of it, even sometimes the loving of it, the giving love to it, whatever it is. So this big change, this shift that's happening in the world, this confrontation to all of our needs for control, there is an opportunity here that dawned on me when I was in my story that, oh no, I'm never going to be successful because now with this, I got to shut everything down. What dawned on me was that there's so much opportunity in making sure that I stay aligned with my purpose, which is to have people have healthy romantic relationships. And even deeper than that, have people be able to love themselves so much that they can overflow onto others, which is the true alignment, the true purpose. So there's so much opportunity for how to overcome and come up with solutions for what might stand in the way and what's going to be a challenge to that. Clearly, an obvious challenge is not being able to go out on face-to-face dates. Not being able to do things how we traditionally have done them, and not being out enough necessarily to just meet people, right? So all of a sudden, there is this even heavier onus on the internet and, digital communication to be that for us. And let's be real, even without a pandemic, a majority of us were already somewhat isolated. A majority of us were already, and I include myself in that too, we're already using social media and the internet and digital communication way more than they were using face-to-face communication. So it's not like we haven't been practicing for this. It's not like this came out of nowhere and, all of a sudden this system called the internet was just plopped into our laps and then we had to sort of figure it out, right? Like, we've been practicing for a while. Not everybody. I get it that there's people out there that didn't necessarily jump on board with digital communication. And some of us that are of a certain age and a little older, I noticed that there is some resistance to, virtual connection and all of that stuff. But the way that where I am right now, the way that I'm perceiving this, and even the more and more news I hear about whatever lockdowns and curfews and closing of things and all of that stuff, while I'm not blind or deaf to the impact that can have on all the people that rely on those places for revenue, what I'm seeing as opportunity is how all the different ways that we can still connect and all the different ways that we can not isolate ourselves, all the different ways that we can still date, amazingly enough, and how we can tap into our creativity around that and what all of that means. So for those of you who've never listened to the show before in its former style and its former form, I am a relationship coach, a workshop facilitator, and a professional matchmaker with Talkify. Now, if you've never heard of Talkify, it's an amazing digital service where you can hire a matchmaker to do all of the sifting and the vetting on your behalf. And it's especially for people who struggle with initiating contact or just simply picking the right partner, which, welcome to the club. That's an issue for a lot of us, myself included. It's like, I always say a master physician doesn't do surgery on themselves. No matter how skilled you are at something, and matchmaking is my zone of genius, no matter how skilled you are at something doesn't mean that you can administer it to yourself. And it's actually not a good idea to administer it to yourself. So in as much as I'm a coach who has a coach and requires coaching, I'm a matchmaker who I don't have an official matchmaker, but I, rely on the matchmaking skills of those in my community and, people that I know. And, I'm in a journey to be more active with that with myself. So that's going to be a lot of what I'm going to be talking about as well on this podcast. So let me tell you a little bit about matchmaking. I mean, whatever you may know of it. I know that in Jewish communities, it's a kind of a known thing. It's very much part of the culture, but not just Jewish communities. I mean, if you look throughout history, many communities have had their different forms of matchmaking. And in Singapore, there's actually a government mandated office that is specifically designed to assist and aid in making marital matches. I don't know all the history from it, but, in a lot of different cultures, there are setups for how people are put together and how couples are found to be compatible. Because being out here as independent, survivalist, thrivalist Americans who can do what we want and be who we want, which was how most of us are sort of raised and how we feel when we live in this country. There's that part of us, a majority of us that are like, I can do everything myself. I can do everything for myself. I don't need anybody's help. I know for myself that there was a long period of time that I was very, very much a lone wolf, and I still can sometimes go back into that habit of being a lone wolf, feeling like if something in my life needs to get done, then I'm on my own with it. And that's sort of a pervasive kind of feeling with dating, I find, in the people that I meet in my own dating efforts and the people that I meet in my work. People feel very much like it's something they got to be doing on their own. And the thing about matchmaking is that, it's as old as currency exchange. And as a matter of fact, that's how it started, as currency exchange. Marriage was a business transaction. It was a merging of lands, a merging of countries. At some point it was for royalty. So you wanted to have someone who took agency over who would be a good match. Whether it was that, you wanted a financial match or, one family needed to recover or, social matching, it's been something that's been important throughout the ages. And I think in this day and time, it has just taken on a new sort of form. So, it's a thing that we don't realize in this day and age requires a lot of brokerage. And that's what it is. It's basically brokerage, right? Organizing the deal, helping singles as opposed to historically families make the most beneficial choices as far as matches are concerned. And there's so many cultures that still, it's really about the family. Like, the families are marrying each other. So there definitely is a level of brokerage and, pastors and religious leaders tend to take that position within families to match people together. So cut to today, and, what is so for most urban areas, a lot of Americas, there's just a lot of single people out there, single people who are getting, to older ages. And, statistically, there's many more single women than men, but, statistics aside, there's just a larger amount of people who are single than married. And I think, don't quote me, because I feel like I read this a while ago, that the statistics for single people is starting to surpass the statistics for how many married people there are. Not to mention, the high divorce rate. So, I think when we take all of that into account, there is a very high value in the consideration of, what if I let somebody else match me? What if I let somebody else do that kind of work that I myself, maybe I'm not doing so well for myself? It's almost like we have this expectation that it's something that accidentally happens to us. I know I grew up always reading romance novels and, believing in romance and thinking that there was going to be some magical meet cute. We didn't call it that back then, but there was going to be some magical meet cute where I met the love of my life. And, it was going to take some sort of romance novel trajectory, and we were going to be together forever and have beautiful children, and everything would be perfect, and it was going to happen on its own. And I don't think that most savvy, single, urbanized people are walking around necessarily, cognitively making that wish anymore. But I think there is somewhere deep down inside. I mean, even people that I screen, grown men who say, oh, it's just going to happen. It's just going to magically happen. And meanwhile, they're in their 40s and 50s, and it hasn't magically happened. Now, with that said, it doesn't mean that I don't believe in the magic of love and that it's possible. It is absolutely possible to randomly meet someone and fall in love with them and all of that. And I don't think that it's something that we have to regimen and take control of the way we would, let's say, a job search. But I do think that, like I said, there's something to be said for allowing a sense of community around how we open ourselves up for love. And allowing, people who might see something else in us or have an understanding of us that we don't necessarily have because our perspective is from the inside of us, right? We see ourselves one way and sometimes other people see us another way. And sometimes, drinking my tea, and sometimes, other people, especially people like myself who are trained to look for certain things, can put their finger on certain desires and needs and, ways of being that might be compatible with someone else that they've done that same kind of vetting with. So, I don't know. I say all of that not to sell you on matchmaking, but just to give you kind of an understanding of what it is and why it's going to be so valuable right now with what's going on with this pandemic, with all this coronavirus stuff. So, yeah, cut to today. And most people who hire a matchmaker are looking to find love. They already have the means to take care of themselves financially. They're not trying to merge land. I mean, they are, but, they don't need to. They're not trying to advance themselves socially. That's not to say that there aren't some people out there that are doing that. But, people who, hire me at Talkify or hire Talkified and work with me and the other matchmakers, they're really generally people who want somebody who can supplement and complement and come into their lives in a romantic, emotional, loving way. And so, with that said, there's a completely different vetting process. There's a completely different way that we approach what it means to actually match people, right? We're not necessarily looking for the ancient mile markers. They do come into play a little bit. Let me not lie. Because we do, I myself, I can't speak for all the matchmakers, but I know for myself, I definitely look for a similar I call it financial energy. Like you don't have to make the same amount of money, but your energy around money, that's something that I look for as a matchmaker. I look for, what is my financial footprint? If I'm somebody who is irresponsible with money, if I have a lot of debt, if my views on money are, if I have a lot of money story and the way I treat money is very self-sabotaging or whatever it may be, I'm not going to match somebody who has a toxic relationship with money with somebody who has a very strong need for certainty when it comes to money, because that's not going to be compatible. And that's why a lot of relationships break up, because of those kinds of differences. And the reason I use money is because money usually speaks to our core values. Like what we spend our money on is usually the stuff that's the most important to us. And that's why money usually gets in the way in relationships, because it speaks to our core values. So if you have two people who have a really bad relationship with money, it's also highly likely that they have a bad relationship with themselves, because money is also how we express how we love ourselves, how we take care of ourselves, how we, navigate our life, our abundance, all of that stuff. So if that's the case, if I don't even love myself that much and I'm expecting you to come into my life and be a savior, or to fill the holes, or to love me, enough that I'll begin to love myself. If I have that expectation on you, after a while, that starts to wear on another person. And sometimes you have two people that are doing that to each other. So I don't match people together who have, one has a toxic relationship with money and the other one has a healthy or certain relationship with money. Now, if I have two people who both have toxic relationships with money, or, without even judging it or calling it toxic, their view of money, and if it's working for them and they feel perfectly happy with it, is that you spend it all and, you don't save for the future and all of that stuff. I have no judgments, but I'm going to match you with somebody who sees it the same way, so that you can both, do whatever you're doing together. You can go on that journey together. And maybe that means learning lessons about treating your money better, or maybe it means, teaching each other, or learning from each other and being able to see yourself in that other person, whatever that might be. But I say all of that to say that those are the kinds of things that I look for when it comes to compatibility, rather than what the olden days would look for, which is, family caste and, social status and, the transactional stuff. Another thing that I look for, I mentioned, is the core values. Like, I'm looking for core value matching. If somebody really understands integrity and what it means to keep their word, and the person that I'm possibly matching them with is someone who believes that integrity is really important and wants to be with somebody that they can trust to do what they say they're going to do, I look for that kind of stuff, because that not only fosters healthy relationships, but that's compatibility stuff. And so, that's what it's about today, in this day and age. And so now we have this other layer, right? Because now we're doing all of that in the midst of a pandemic. And so, my stage of the matchmaking, when it's in the matchmaking stage of it, obviously that's an early stage, right? It's the stage of what people are normally doing for themselves, which is, going online and trying to find somebody and trying to do all that work for themselves. It's like people who do their own hair. When it comes to the logistics of finding somebody to date or to be with, some people are really good at doing their own hair and they can do all those logistics. Doesn't necessarily mean they'd be great with, knowing what hairstyle looks best on them. And some people are terrible with doing their own hair and, doing their own logistics and figuring things out. So, having somebody else do it is also, that's also an argument for having someone else do it. But I don't know where I was going with that. So I guess what I'm saying is that now, with this added layer of, now that we're doing it in a pandemic, and, like I was talking about earlier, what opportunities are there for us? What kinds of things can we now do now that we're looking for their intimate connection, while life has sort of turned upside down all over the world? Okay, side note, all over the world, life has turned upside down. I mean, that's amazing and miraculous. Like, I know that sounds nuts, because for the most part, everybody's out there like, this is the worst possible thing can happen. We're hearing all these scary words like virus and death and pandemic and sickness and all of that stuff. Just, it can sound so anxiety ridden and scary and horrible, especially if you are afraid of your transition. I'm someone who, I'm not looking to die, but I'm not afraid of my transition. As a matter of fact, I'm totally cool with it. Like, I know that I'm a being that is on this earth in this human suit, and that's my belief. And whether it's ultimately true or not really doesn't matter, because having that belief on this earth makes it a lot easier to not, be in an anxious, crazed space. Like I can only be in each moment, right? Total non sequitur, total side note. I'm going off in all different directions. So let's get back on track. So matchmaking, relationship coaching, it is my zone of genius. And the best part about it is that week to week, I get to grow and learn as I interact with people around the most intimate parts of their lives. And I get to meet and nurture new clients, and I get to screen possible dating candidates for them. And I get to design programs and activities that deepen their ability to get to know each other. And so that's why I feel like even though people want this current situation to be a curse, not that they want it to be a curse, but you know what I mean. It's been labeled a curse. There is an opportunity to be so creative around this, this deepening of intimacy, this deepening of activities that actually have us see each other and reconnect and let go of the past. Because honestly, I don't know about you, but ever since all this news started, ever since all of this started, I just feel like I want to do everything that I said I want to do. And all the stuff I've been procrastinating, finishing my book, just getting things together, getting organized with my coaching, and just all this stuff that I have been talking about, and I drag my feet on it every day, or, every time I let myself go down a YouTube rabbit hole, like, I feel like I just want to do all of it, and not in a frantic, crazy, I'm afraid kind of way, but, this being faced with mortality like this, we don't know how much time we have on this earth. And we didn't know it before all of this coronavirus stuff started happening. It's not new for us to have life uncertainty, but because it's a nationwide, a global, I should say, conversation, all of a sudden, it's taken on this enormous gravity. And, I don't know how to say this without sounding callous, but the death and the destruction, it's been going on long before this coronavirus started. And the danger to our lives, the possibilities for tragedy, the trauma, all of that has been going on since the beginning of man. And that's not to minimize what's happening. And that's not to say that we shouldn't be taking responsible precautions and that we don't have some level of agency in making this be safer. But because of all of those things, I just feel like this can be seen as an opportunity to do for each other, and an opportunity to be more intimate. Now I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but what I was going to say is right now with Talkify and with my coaching communities, we're taking big steps major steps to recreate the world of video conferencing as a tool that might be as suggestive of the bedroom as it currently is of the boardroom, honey. So video conferencing, which I have been, which Talkify has introduced to our clientele, and I have been personally, with my own clients that I'm assigned to, nurturing them into, loving them into, getting them open to the idea, enrolling them in, because some of them are older. And like I said, those of us of a certain age, we remember a time when there wasn't even call waiting on the phone. So I know I'm dating myself, but, when you come from that space, this idea of digital dating sounds ridiculous. It sounds like, how am I ever going to be able to connect with somebody? How is this even like a thing? Right? When you come from a space of like, seeing this evolution of the digital age, it doesn't even make sense. I think a lot of times we look at, even though I'm someone who's on social media and I post myself doing random things like dancing in my living room or whatever, sometimes we look at younger people who've always been digitally connected, who, since they were little babies have known how to navigate smartphones and things like that. We look at them and it's like there's this understanding that this lack of understanding of what life even means without it. You know, like there's no, I remember watching an interview, I think between Stephen Colbert and Liza Koshy, which was so interesting because Stephen Colbert, I believe he's like Generation X, and Liza Koshy, you know, very popular millennial, very talented, adore her. She's as cute as she can be. Both of them are, you know, sparklingly talented people. And, you know, I think he asked her about something about her relationship with another famous YouTuber, David Dobrik, and asked her about, you know, why they posted their breakup or something like that. And her response was like, it was almost like he asked her why she woke up that morning. Like, what else would I like? Of course, that's what I did. Because for people that age, you know, having digital intimacy and broadcasting your life and all of that stuff, it's just natural for them. You know, I have a little 8-year-old that I sometimes take care of. I call her my 8-year-old Yogi. I've known her since she was a baby. And, you know, even with her, she has an iPad that has no internet connection to it, but she videos herself all the time. And granted, she's probably copying what she's seen on, you know, Disney shows or whatever, but it's like a fish to water. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, we had little recording machines and stuff like that, but it didn't occur to me that I could just video myself. We grew up, you know, with the movie Fame. We thought that if you were anybody was ever going to look at you or video you or you were going to be on stage, it's because someone else put you there. It's just, you guys get it. Like, getting people on board with the idea of developing intimacy digitally, people who haven't always had this technology, is an interesting challenge. And it can be a fun challenge too, because I've enrolled a couple of people who at first were a little bit trepidatious about it. So if you are trepidatious about it, maybe you are younger and you still feel like, okay, yeah, I'm on social media all the time, but I don't really feel like I can develop a real connection. What I want to talk about is how to video date, and how to video date in a way that causes a connection and creates enough intimacy that, you know, you might end up wanting to be quarantined together. Not to make light of it. I know some people are very anxious in the midst of all this quarantining, but this is the idea, right? So, you know, even though we can't be at bars and restaurants right now in a lot of places, even though our gathering is limited, and, you know, all those usual elements that help to foster and support that kind of connection, the idea is that I 100% believe that it is possible to meet someone digitally, video conference date with them a few times, and get to a point where you can trust each other enough that you can have a one-on-one. The CDC is still letting us meet each other one-on-one. That you can meet one-on-one, whether it be somewhere outdoors, you know, with social distance, and take steps slower. And even that in itself is an opportunity, because it just slows things way down. And for those of us who like for it to go slow, it's great. And those of us who push too fast because we're attached to trying to make something happen, it's great, because there's a lesson to be had in that. So, you know, there's a win to be found in every step of how this can be recreated, right? So how do we have a date? How do we video date in a way that causes connection and creates intimacy? So first, let's consider the point of a first date. What is the point of a first date? It has one point. And even though we try to like cast all these other things on top of it, a first date has one singular point, and that is to get acquainted with someone. That's it. And for some people, you know, in the past, that has meant get sexually acquainted. It means getting emotionally acquainted, intellectually acquainted, learn about their family, whatever it might be. The whole purpose of a first date is to get acquainted. And so if you're on a first date for any other reason than to get to know a person, then you're basically standing in your own way, because, you know, that's the point of it. And here's the things that it's not for, so that you're clear on, like, what I mean by standing in your own way. A first date is not for you to find your soulmate. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive because you think dating is for finding your soulmate. Overall, yes. In the big picture, the reason we get active around dating is because there's this hope that we're going to meet that person that's going to be our person. Absolutely. But when you go on a first date with someone, if your intention is to find your soulmate on that date, you are setting so much attachment and expectation. You are setting yourself up to fail. That doesn't mean that you absolutely won't meet your soulmate on a first date. But if that's what you were looking for and you're like trying to hold them up against your list of standards and you're trying to cram all of who you are into their brain because, you find them attractive, so you want them to know you, like all of that is the stuff that gets in the way of what naturally can happen and how people naturally connect and what's possible. So forget all that you think about what's supposed to happen on a first date. Forget all the bullshit stuff that you've seen in movies or, whatever informs you thinking that a first date is supposed to be this. And the reason I say this is because a lot of my clients, I love and adore them. They've had great dates and they rate we have a rating system from 1 to 5. And the men always come back a 5, a strong 5. I want to see her again. She was great. And the women often come back a 4. Well, he was great. I liked him. We had a good time, but there was no chemistry, or I didn't, I don't know. He didn't sweep me off my feet, or I didn't fall on the floor. Like, we got to stop doing that when it comes to our first dates, because that's not what a first date is for. If you have that, then great. I don't want to take that away from anybody, but to have the expectation that your first date is going to be like, pow, bang, like that's it, I'm done, is just too much burden to put on a first date. That's like having a baby to fix your marriage. Like, it's too much burden to put on something that just doesn't have the strength, the power, or the capability of doing something so colossal in your life. It's also not for getting a free dinner. And that happens. It does happen, a lot of women especially, but a lot of people get a free dinner from going on these first dates. But if you're using it for that, then, if that's your intention and that's all you're about, then whatever, like you got to clean up your own integrity around that. But, it still has to be approached with some level of sacredness. And if it's just like, fuck them all, I'm just going to get a free dinner, then, that's not the purpose of it either. Although if you have a date that doesn't go so great, you can always say, well, at least I got a dinner out of it. That's one way you can spin it. The point of a first date and what makes it the most pleasant experience that it can be is to meet someone new and begin a natural pace of learning about them. And by natural, I just mean whatever is organic and natural to you and that person. There's no rules around what the pace has to be. But if you're authentic and you're just being yourself and you're open to being yourself without needing for them to see you right away and needing to have some sort of sign that they're right for you right away. If you're just there to be and experience and explore and discover, that is what makes a first date what a first date should be. What a first date can be, I should say. That is what brings out the possibilities of a first date. And that's best achieved when there is no attachment to whether they are the one, right? So when we consider it like this and just allow it to be exactly what it is, this is the beginning of exploration into another human being. And it can be equally connective when it is done in the digital space. So what are some ways, some steps that we can take to have that be successful? Well, number 1 is to look good, honey. Look good. I have a client, she's a little bit resistant to it because she feels like she doesn't look good on video. And the thing about video is you do have to play with it a little bit because there's like certain angles. I mean, even when I do Zoom conferences with my computer, if I have the computer sitting too low and it's like facing up my nose and I'm not lit right, I look crazy. I got one sketched eye, like it's the least attractive I can look. And you can see yourself on there, so it's not like you can't make adjustments, right? So you want to get in the practice of looking good on video. Set the camera in a way like raise it up a little bit, set it back if you need to, frame out what the picture looks like, what's behind you. If you wear makeup, Make sure your makeup is good. And the good thing about it is a camera at the right angle and a nice warm light hides a lot of ills. So, it really can be your friend if you just lean into what's possible. You adjust the camera a little bit. I don't expect everybody to be a Ansel Adams or photographer. Just be willing to make some adjustments. See how your camera looks best and play with it a little bit. Also, you don't have to worry about the waist down. Depending on where you place the camera, you only have to look good from the waist up. I mean, I don't necessarily recommend, you could be in your sweatpants and be wearing something really, really nice on the top and have your face completely made up. But then don't stand up, because then they're going to see what's on the bottom. Or if you're just wearing, no pants, you might not want to stand up. But, you have this, you can make it real easy, because all you got to do is set the framing of it and just remember that that's the frame you've set. Personally, I like to be fully dressed just in case I do have to get up, or if I want to get up and go get something. And that's, that supports what I'm going to talk about later, which is how you theme out the date and the activities. So you also want to make sure that there's a light source that's shining on your face. An unlit face is way too scary movie for a first meeting. You don't want to be like in silhouette in the darkness, and let them get a look at you. You could have a table lamp, a ring light. I have a ring light. Anything that will highlight your face. Ring lights are very flattering. They're actually really inexpensive too. You can, I don't know if you can still order them on Amazon. I don't know if Amazon is delivering right now, but even if you can't, you can set up a table lamp in front of you. And, don't be afraid to ask them to illuminate their face as well. I think sometimes guys can be a little lazy when it comes, like you've seen how men take selfies a lot of times. And I know I'm generalizing, but, you look on any online dating sites, most of the men's pictures are not doing them any justice. And when it comes to video conferencing, they just get on, they look at the camera, and they're ready to go. So if you're meeting somebody, and women do it too, so I'm not just talking to women about this. If you're meeting somebody, don't be afraid to let them know that you can't see them. And when I'm screening people and when I'm talking to my clients, if I can't see their faces, I ask them to sit in front of the light. They will tell you. I ask them to adjust wherever they are so that I can actually look at their face, look in their eyes, all that good stuff. And you can ask nicely. It's not a big deal. If they have a real problem with it, then, that might be an indication that they're not going to be someone who's going to be easy to develop intimacy with. And, just something to know. So get yourself a Zoom account. It doesn't have to be Zoom, but I think Zoom is a common platform for video conferencing. I think you can also use Google Hangouts. There's FaceTime. I don't know how long any of those things go, but if you have a paid Zoom account, which is like $16 a month or something like that, you can go for a couple hours or more on a conference. So let's say your date goes kind of long. I don't recommend first dates going longer than a couple hours, but you never know. Let's say you do meet somebody that I don't know, that you really gel with. And so you want to sit on there with them a little bit longer, whatever your theme might be. So as a matchmaker, I supply my matches with my Zoom account, with my Zoom link. But if you're out there doing it by yourself, because you really feel like you want to handle it on your own, you can send someone your Zoom link and just be in the video conference waiting for them. Like, it's a great way to express your interest and even your time integrity, right? Like, you invited them there and you're all on time, and then they get there and you've set a mood in your, where you live. And, it's a cute, creative, fun way to express who you are and express your interests and your ability to pull things together. If that's your ability. If it's not so much your ability, that's not bad either. But, do your best as far as that's concerned, because your match is going to appreciate that no matter what. Whatever your best is going to be right for the person that's compatible with you. Listen, you're not trying to sell yourself on somebody, to somebody who is not already compatible with you. I'm already starting to run out of time. So whether you've agreed to coffee, dinner, cocktails, or making balloon animals, whatever it is, bring that stuff with you to the date. Whatever it might be, maybe you're going to craft something together. This is where you get to be creative, right? So they're doing it on their end, you're doing it on your end, And it works because it's like you shared in something, and even though you're not in the same space, you're not in the same room, you both cared enough about it to bother. Even if it's just, we're going to sit and have cocktails, we're going to have a bottle of wine, and you each have your own glass of wine, or, that you each provided yourselves, sure. But it's the fact that you took the initiative, that you cared enough to actually go with the theme and make it happen. So be somewhere that has a really good internet connection, obviously, minimal distractions. You want to put away all your other devices. Don't, just like if you were sitting across the table at dinner with somebody, you don't want to be sitting there like, on your phone, looking at everything else but them, distracted by other windows that are open on your computer, like stuff like that. Like, be in the moment, be present, be with that person. So this other one goes back to what I was saying before about showing up without expectations. So just remember that other person does not owe it to you to be the love of your life. You're just checking each other out. That's all a first date is. It's an exploration. They don't owe it to you. And, I know this happens a lot more often. I say this with such certainty, but I feel like this happens a lot more often with women. We get disappointed that this person isn't everything that we wanted them to be. And so quickly we get annoyed on a date, or we get like, and you know what, let me not just put that on women, because a guy I even screened the other day was saying how, if she's not pretty enough, I'm going to leave. And I know that sounds like such a douchebag thing to say and to do. But, when I look at it from his perspective, it's this idea that I'm coming with an expectation that you be something. And if you're not that thing, then I'm going to have to take control. And so that's another thing that really sabotages our ability to have connections, is like, show up without expectations. That person doesn't owe it to you to be pretty enough for you. They don't owe it to you to be smart enough for you, or well-dressed enough for you. They don't owe that to you. They're coming to explore to see if you might be compatible just like you are. And if you're not, no one has done anything wrong. There's nothing wrong in not being compatible. There's nothing wrong with not actually being a match. It's not a waste of time to have met someone new and to connected with someone, even just on a friend level, even just on a quick acquaintance level, to have brought a smile to someone's life who's not going to be your forever person, to have gone out of your way to show someone attention. There's absolutely nothing wrong in any of that. And so when we get annoyed and irritated and, maybe a little mean or standoffish, or all the things that we do, all the resistance that comes up when someone is not what we'd like for them to be because we've attached our expectations to them, we're just standing in our own way. Because, yeah, sure, they may not be the one that you want to be with forever, but this dating stuff, it's practice for your forever person. And your forever person is going to be someone who you build a series of happy moments with. And if you're not willing to even have a happy moment with somebody brand new, how are you ever going to get to a place where you build a series of happy moments with someone? Right? If it's all about attachment for you and they have to check all your boxes in order for you to even be nice to them, it's conditional, and conditional just doesn't work. And in this day and age, conditional is going to be the way of the old. Like, it's just, conditional is not going to work anymore. Needing for someone to be good enough in order for you to be compassionate and all of that stuff. Now, I'm not saying that to shame you. You may not have never ever done that. You might be a very nice and kind person. But when it comes to these first dates, we want to just really be cognizant and aware of where we are when it comes to expectation level. Bring the same level of energy that you would bring to a face-to-face meetup. Come with that same loving energy, that same verve, that same, I'm excited, without the expectation. But I'm here to bring the fun. I'm here to bring a good time. I'm here no matter what I'm committed to is this is going to be fun. When you come that way, you're going to have a good time no matter what. Even if that person is someone you don't even have any interest in spending time with after that. If you're okay with that they're not fitting into all of your boxes and you're not attached to them having to be something, and you're committed to just being unconditionally you, unconditionally positive, unconditionally in the moment, in the exploration, doing dating as dating is meant to be, which is fun, then it's going to be a good experience. Be creative and clever. Maybe theme your date. You can give it titles like Living Room Picnic with Jacob and Leslie. I don't know who Jacob and Leslie are. I just made up those names. But you can theme your date. Call it whatever you want on a Zoom conference or whatever platform you choose to use. Be present and in the moment. I know I'm rushing through these, but this is an hour long, so I'm running out of time. This hour goes by so fast. I want you to be present and in the moment. Be present on these dates. And like I was saying with the devices, just because you're on a video conference doesn't mean that a person can't feel your attention and connection, because they absolutely can. You can see the dynamics of, which is what makes video conferencing so great, is you can see the dynamics of how they ebb and flow in their emotions, in their reactions. You can see their facial expressions. It's very important. And then the last is to leave all your worries and anxieties, especially in this day and age, and your problems from the outside world somewhere else. You can always pick them back up later after the date is over. Like, leave all of that stuff, all of your anxieties about, what's going to happen in the world, I hazard to guess that if you're somebody who's really worried right now, you were worried before. You might not have been worried about a pandemic, but there was other stuff you were stressing about. So if you're someone who's stressed out and stress is your thing and you're used to stressing, you worry about a lot of things, a date is an opportunity to just pack it up in a little box, put it off to the side, and enjoy yourself and be in that moment. And if you need to pick it up later, I don't recommend picking it back up because it's useless, but I don't want to invalidate you. If you need to pick that stress back up, if you need to pick your worries back up, if you need to go back to, the checklist in your head of all the things that can go wrong, you can pick that back up after the date is over. You don't need to bring that to the date. It's not going to serve you in any way. And your date is not there to be your therapist, and they're not, their job, even if you do hit it off and get in a relationship, is not to manage your anxieties or any of your mental challenges or emotional challenges. I mean, we all have them on some level, so you're not alone with that. But this expectation that our romantic love is to be the one to save us from them, fix them, know what to say, know what to do. It's too high of an expectation, especially for a first date, but even in a regular relationship. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying it's not fair to expect it. So, that's 10 things that you can do to have a really great video conference date, a video connection. It's, you can also come with questions. There's an article called 36 Questions That Lead to Love. I think it was in the New York Times. And they're just really great, connective, intimate. I'm going to give some to my clients. We're doing that at Talkify with groups of questions. There's a great support at Talkify for us as a matchmaking team. So, there's questions that we can be sending to people as they go on their dates. It's fantastic. And it's just a new way. It's a new wave of things. It's a new exploration. It's different than the old way. It's different than what we've been doing. And I gotta say, I'm open to it because I think what we've been doing has not necessarily been the best possible route for a lot of us. So if you want to be included in my roster of recruits to be matched with a client for free, just send me a private message. You can send me a message on Facebook. My business page is Candace Harper Love Coach. You can also email me, askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram @CandyLoveCoach. And you can DM me with your interest, and I'll send you the link so that you can sign up to become a recruit and have, be in our network to be able to be matched with people and possibly even become a client yourself and get your own matchmaker. You can actually even request me if you like. All you have to be is single, or in a state of freedom around your dating. I don't recommend it for people who are in a relationship and trying to, cheat or anything like that. But if you're single and, you're open to being screened and willing to go on this journey of digital dating, it's perfect for you.